So this is the final part, part 7, and what it will cover will be the scenery that we had after we finished building the house. Now, as you can see, we put this on a base, and then I used a fence to outline, and I show how to build that in a little bit, the base, and I moved it in about 1/2 of an inch. So what I did was I added some actual tree limbs that I got out in the woods. I added some leaves. The gravestones came with the kit, but I made out of clay a little 3 graves there. And the leaves are real leaves put into a blender. And you turn the blender on and it chops them up into little leaves. And the grass itself is made out of scene grass that you use with railroad layouts. I'll show you how that works. And when I did the vines going up the wall, what I used for that was moss, and just took a little piece at a time and glued it onto the side of the house with white glue. So I'm going to show you individually how each of these items were constructed. And here's the gate. I used the same hinge thing with the gate that I used with the rest of the house. Again, I put some leaves up on the porch. I covered some on the top. I put some leaves and some moss, and I put a little moss up here and some more climbing ivy on the side and climbing ivy on the front. The bushes, I actually used bushes from, again, a train layout hobby shop kit, where you can get the grass and the bushes and all those items. Again, the tree is something I got out in the woods. I actually had a whole bunch of different ideas for trees, and I just tried different ones and laid them out and then decided on what wound up here. One of the things I did on the tree limbs, aside from putting a bunch of birds on there, I'm not sure where those came from. Chris found those, so she gave those to me to put on. You might be able to see that on the tree limbs, there's some sort of like fuzzy moss, and I'll show you how that was put on as well. And this actually is a spare fence post. So when I did the fence posts, I went ahead and used my Dremel tool and made them look sort of old and beat up the way it should. Same with the fence. And that's the final result. I did not want to do the scenery. That is something Chris wanted to do. So I went in and said, hey, I'm not going to do the scenery. And she goes, yeah, you are. That it would look a lot better with it. So I really wanted to end with the house builds, but I've never done the scenery before. This is my first shot at it, so it's probably not perfect, but I learned a lot by going on to online videos with folks who do train layouts. They're really good at this, and they give you some great ideas. All in all, I'm happy with the build, the way it finished. I'll have some different shots included in here of the detail, and then also some videos on what it looks like with the lights. This video will show how we did the grass and the yard for the landscaping. We basically started with coarse turf. This is something you can get at any hobby shop, and it's available, and they use it for railroad landscaping. Coarse turf is kind of fuzzy, and I actually used it, I can show you right here where I used it on the trees. You might be able to see that I have some of that coarse turf to make the trees look like there's a little bit of moss. Then we have leaves, And the leaves are actually real leaves. I just put them in the blender, turned it on, and until it got to the consistency I wanted. From there, we go to moss. And the moss is used somewhat around the house, but actually I would use it. And the moss is what I used a little piece at a time. And that's what I used to make the climbing vines on the house. That's actually the moss. And to attach it, I use white glue. Then I have a couple other bags of different color. I've got a dark earth color and then a light green color. So what I did was I put light green down first on the grass, and then after I put down light green, I went ahead and put down a darker color and put it over the top of it. And then once that was done, I would put down the coarse turf, and that made it look a little bit gloppy. Now, how do we do this? Let's take a look at this turf right here. So what I use is plain white glue, and I learned this on the railroad site, and it's like a third white glue and a third, 2/3 water. Now, you can lay it down. You could actually, if you got a big area, you can brush it on, but you just put white glue, it'll soak through and it'll stick to whatever you want it to stick to, the board. Now you notice it's kind of gloppy there. Well, then you have to take the surface tension off. And how you do that is with alcohol. And I have a small spray bottle of alcohol that I could use. But if you go spraying it, the grass is going to fly all over everywhere. So I use a eyedropper. And when I put the eyedropper in here, you're going to see that gloppy white glue all disappears and just sort of spreads out. It cuts the surface adhesion on the white glue. Great little trick, worked well. And then the other item that I used for this, when I was using a large area, I would put the green grass in here, and then I would just shake it. So when I started with the wood and the whole green area, I basically brushed on white glue, and I made that coating a little bit thicker. And then I spread it with the salt shaker. And then once that light green was there, it was way too pretty a green, then I went and I would put darker over the top. And once I put it over the top to reach a large area, I went ahead and used the spray bottle. So that's how I got the all of the grass in. As far as the bushes themselves, I bought these little bushes at the hobby shop as well. I sprayed them in a little bit with dark color, and I used some black on it because I wanted them to look dark and menacing. I didn't want them to be a pretty green. And then since they're made out of wire, you can cut and clip them to fit properly. And then I drilled little tiny holes and then just stuck it in the hole with some super glue. And that's basically all I did as far as putting together the whole scenery set. Putting together, and I'm going to show you, putting together the this is what I used for the vines that were climbing vines. So I would put it. Then I've got glue on one side, and then I could just go ahead and then I would stick it to the house. I would have to hold it for a second or two, but once it's stuck down, it pretty well stayed. I usually didn't have to put alcohol with it. You can. If I put a touch of alcohol on it, it would spread way out and almost go away. You see what happens to white glue when you put alcohol on it. Now, that is a better consistency. I mean, really, that would be better for attaching it to the house. But I actually had a little bowl of white glue and I added just a touch of the alcohol in it, stirred it up, and I would dip these moss items into it and then put them on. The other thing that you could use for a climbing vines is threads. You could use a thread, a dark thread or a thick thread. And I tried that and I really wasn't happy with the outcome. I actually have some of that here and I tried using the thread and it just didn't look creepy enough. So the bad side of using the moss is it's pretty fragile. So this is, while it's stiff, it if I it's possible that that piece will just break right. Well, that one's not, but it's possible some of it'll just break off over time. So we'll see how it goes. Putting moss on the trees, basically, and you could probably see a little bit on this side. I only put it on one side because technically moss only grows on the north side. So I just decided which area was north. And I just took a brush and a paintbrush and I painted my white glue up and down here. And then I took the light green grass and I put it on the end of a little stick and just sort of spread it around and almost blew it right into the tree so it'd stick into the white glue. Once it was stuck, I could add more later, but I wanted to get the first coat down. And then, as I say, I added the moss and for sort of the vines, and then I added the rough soil, and that is sort of gloppy, as is shown here. And then this I would put, because you can see I've got it mixed up and it's got super glue and alcohol on it, and I would just set it on the branch of a tree and then let it dry. And then it'll dry somewhat fuzzy, but it'll stick. If you just put it on there without making it, getting it kind of damp first, it's going to be too fuzzy and it's just going to blow away. Then I added some birds, and the fence is nothing more than skewer sticks, and that's what I made that out of. And that winds up being the entire scenic layout of it. This is a tree branch I found in the woods. Again, I used some climbing ivy, which was moss, and then I found this old piece in the woods, and I kind of liked the way it looked. So it looked like it fit in here. And then when I did the graveyard, which, as I say, the headstones came with the kit, I decided to use some clay that hardens up actually after a while. And I made 3 sort of graves out of that. So this provides definition to the whole scene by having a fence around it. I wasn't going to put a fence on the porch, but then again, Chris came by and said, you got to have a fence on the porch. And so did that too. That's how we put together most of the scenery, and hopefully it's something that you can get a good sense of. If you need more help on the scenery, I'm not the expert. The expert would be to go to YouTube and look at people who do railroad layouts. They do some really neat stuff, much better than what I do. Oh, by the way, the brick sidewalk is just a brick applique, and it was applied with glue, just plain old super glue or any type of glue that would hold it down, really. And it's made out of vinyl. It was actually used with Christmas houses, those little Christmas house scenes, and you can buy different little houses for them and different little things. Well, this was a brick path for that. And so that's where I got it. But I had to rough it up. I used sandpaper. I put some leaves on it, and I used some black paint to dry brush it so it looked kind of old. And this first step actually came with the house. It just didn't really go there. It was designed a different way. Remember, the house was designed to be something other than what you're looking at now. Okay, that finishes the unique haunted Halloween house. That's also an advent calendar. Where you could put pictures in there of the family, which I did, or you could put Halloween pictures in. Okay, so time for my wine, which is a pretty good way to get through the entire project. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments. I don't know what my next project will be. I've done the Christmas house and I've done this Halloween house. So not sure what holiday is left that I want to try, but we'll see. If you have some ideas, just let me know in the comments, and look forward to doing some more videos in the future on some future projects. Thank you for watching.